evaporate, revealing an all-too-familiar redcoat. This was no loup-garou. This was a menace even worse. It was one of the British soldiers, the enemy, the starving enemy. In fact, he was Lieutenant Steele, the quartermaster, and he was exactly the kind of danger she'd hoped to avoid. She lifted her hand away from the 2 eggs in her pocket, not wanting to bring attention to her hidden treasure, and she resisted the urge to lay her hand protectively against the thin slice of ash cake and the few acorn shells tucked into her bodice. She could give him the fish if she must, but the eggs and the bread were her prized hoarding of the day. His hollow gaze fixed hungrily on the trout. In the fog, his gaunt face was more like that of a skeleton, rising from the grave, rather than the werewolf she'd first imagined.
The fish, lass.
Yes?
What would Ebenezer Whiley say if he discovered you withholding some of your catch for yourself?
The question held a threat. Everyone knew how stingy her stepfather was. Even the British soldiers who came to his tavern and store had learned he dealt a hard bargain. If Ebenezer found out that Angelique was holding back even a few small fish out of her morning deliveries, he'd do his best to stop her and punish her harshly. Then what would become of Miriam? Lieutenant Steele's lips twisted into a grin.
Ah, I see you don't want Mr. Whiley to learn about your cheating.
The soldier took another unsteady step.
As quartermaster, I've been instructed by the general to help the commissary collect more food for the garrison this morning.
She didn't believe him for a second. With his bloodshot eyes and untidy appearance, she guessed he'd spent the night drinking and was on his way to the North Sally port, hoping to sneak into the fort undetected. She'd play along with his game. Oh, I beg your pardon. In all my hard work this morning, I must have missed the sound of reveille. She knew for a fact the drummer and fifer hadn't woken the troops yet. She always listened for reveille. Even though it was played within the fort, the islanders used it as their clock. Ebenezer would expect her back shortly after the sounding, but if Lieutenant Steele wanted to threaten her, then she'd do the same to him. They both knew she could report him for being outside the fort. All the soldiers were restricted to their quarters, once the fort musicians played tap 2 in the evening, until reveille the next morning. Breaking the curfew could result in severe punishment. Only the week before, a soldier had been caught outside the fort after hours. His sentence had been 100 lashes with the cat-o'-nine-tails. The captain had reduced the lashes to 75, when the soldier had pleaded that hunger had driven him out to look for food.
If you give me the fish,
the quartermaster said more soberly, as if he too remembered the recent whipping,
then we can pretend I never saw you, and you never saw me.
She loosened her grip on the string of fish, hesitated only a moment, and then tossed them at his feet. Every muscle in her thin body tensed with the need to escape the moment he bent over to retrieve the fish. But instead of going after the trout, he lunged after her with a quickness that belied his vulnerable state. His bony fingers circled her arm, and he yanked her against his emaciated frame with surprising strength. She was too stunned to react.
I think you're hiding more food.
His sour breath found her cheek, making her want to retch. The hard bones of his ribs pressed against the thinly wrapped ash cake in her bodice. She pushed at his chest. His red coat had become threadbare after the harsh winter. His hair was overlong, his face scruffy, and his eyes sunken into what at one time had been a handsome face. He was a sorry sight now. After 2 years on the island, all the soldiers were a sorry sight. The winters on Michilimackinac were hard on even the most seasoned islander, much less a thin-skinned, poorly clad British regular. "We're all hungry," she said quietly. "Please take the fish as my gift, and let me be on my way." His grip wavered, but only for a second before tightening again.
Give me the rest of what you have. Now.
I can't do that. He grunted and slipped his hand around her neck. His fingers coiled, cutting off her breath. With a burst of panicked energy, she kicked at him and plucked at his hand, trying to free her neck from his choking hold. But in his hunger-induced delirium, his strength was unshakable.